My name is Dave Schneider. I had the pleasure of working in Larry Gladson's golf shop from 1990 to 1996. A few months ago, when Larry had asked me to introduce him on this special night, I became extremely emotional and immediately nervous, and of course, extremely honored. This person means so much to me for so many reasons. My very next phone call after talking to Larry was to Chad Pitts to ask him how much time I had. After Chad told me how much time, I said, "You better bet the over." I'm not going to read the accolades, not going to read the accomplishments, the achievements of this great man, but you can all read those in the program that you have in front of you. Clearly, Larry's accomplishments speak for themselves and are more than worthy of being a Hall of Famer in the state of Iowa. I have a feeling Larry is going to talk about his family, he's going to talk about Julie, talk about Kimberly and Mark, their spouses. He clearly is a tremendous husband, father, and friend. We always joke that with all their great looks, they need to be placed as a family in the picture frames at all the Walmarts and Targets. Again, when Larry asked me to introduce him, I just did not feel right about it. Larry has done so much for me and for my family, but I'm not the only one. There are dozens of other individuals who have worked for, with, and alongside Larry that he has impacted so deeply as well. So I thought, how can we all be part of this introduction? The only thing I could think of was to contact some of the golf professionals, close to industry colleagues and friends that have been provided their thoughts about Larry. I asked them questions like, what are 3 words that describe Larry? What qualities and traits does Larry possess that you admire? Why is Larry worthy of the Iowa Golf Hall of Fame? And then lastly, please provide at least 3 extremely personal and embarrassing stories about Larry. Yeah. At this time, I'd like to share some of those comments from these individuals. Now, please keep in mind, in many cases, Larry, these phone calls lasted well over an hour. And trying to pick and choose what phrases they said about you and try to encapsulate that tonight was very difficult. Please know they all said so much more than you're about ready to hear and what I'm about ready to read. First, from the people that you have mentored over a 30-year career. These are in no particular order. Folks, get ready, this is quite a list. So first, let's talk about Steve Riley. Steve Riley worked in the industry after working for Larry for more than 20 years as the head professional at Cleveland Country Club and Sunnyside Country Club. He worked for Larry from 90 to 92. And like a lot of us, he came straight out of the background. Fantastic mentor are some things that Steve said. He took great pride in shaping the future of those he worked with. He always kept the game and the PGA of America in his best interest. Brad Cady. Sorry folks, some of these names might not mean a whole lot to some of you, but I can promise you it means something to the people in the front row and to that man right there. So Brad Cady. Brad Cady worked for Larry from 92 to 2004. Brad has worked at tremendous facilities after Elmcrest like True North, Indian Ridge, Whitney Oaks, Morgan Creek, and Granite Bay Golf Club. Brad has the distinction of being under Larry's tutelage more than any of us, 12 years. However, there's someone in the room that's going to break that record soon. Anybody? Everything I know in the golf business, I owe and know because of Larry Gladson, Brad said. Without Larry, I would not be in the golf industry right now. It's a pretty strong statement. Brad Zeitler. Like everyone that I spoke to that is not here tonight, Brad was emphatic in wanting you to know how badly he wanted to be here. He was really trying to surprise you with his attendance, but it was just not in the cards. Brad worked for Larry from 87 to 89. He went on to work on places like Indian Ridge, the Country Club of Boston, and Brookline. Now he's celebrating his 15th year at Brookside in Columbus, Ohio. He gave us all a chance, Brad said. He always takes my call no matter what and always has time for me. Brad's final statement was, Schneid's, tell Larry that even though he is getting inducted tonight, tell him I had him in my Hall of Fame back in 1987. Brian Wilson. Brian Wilson's the head golf professional at Thunder Hills Country Club, Peosta, Iowa, and has been for the past 19 years, still there today. He worked for Larry from 94 to 98. 3 words that Brian used to encapsulate Larry were passionate, respected, supported. He prepared me to be successful in every aspect of life, not just a successful golf professional. I know that Brian and Larry remain very close today. Brian and I actually created a lot of headaches for Larry by being the first ones to live in the irrigation pump house on hole number 14. It's crazy how Brian can be late for work living 389 yards away from the golf shop. Must have been traffic, eh, Brian? Bad roommate. Mr. David Edwards. After working for Larry in 1991, he became the head golf professional at Rock River Country Club and Dubuque Golf and Country Club, where he is still there to this day. Some of the things David said. I would not be where I am in this industry without Larry Gladson. He is second to none as a mentor anywhere in the country. Larry Dave Edwards wanted to apologize to you for 2 reasons tonight. First of all, he wanted to apologize that he could not be here. And secondly, he wanted to apologize for almost burning down your bag room in the spring of 1990. Mr. Frank Anderson. Frank Anderson worked for Larry from 2003 to 2010. I hope you're doing all the years in your head with all these individuals, folks. I hold Larry in the highest regard of any person that I know, Frank said. If there was a father and husband hall of fame, he should be inducted into those as well. Mr. Bryan Johnson. Bryan is currently the Director of Instruction at Elmcrest and has worked for Larry for the past 12 years, 2 different stints of work. He is soon to be the longest tenured employee to work with Larry when he gets to year 13. Bryan is most impressed with the experience that Larry provides to people when he talks to them. He states that Larry makes it special whether it's the first time he is giving somebody a lesson or if it's a 30-year member at the club and he is simply handing them a tournament scorecard before play. People love being around Larry. Mr. Steve Lawrence. I had to pull Steve Lawrence out of a bowling league game to have him comment on Larry. Steve worked for Larry from 1985 to 1989. He stated that he has the distinction of being Larry's first assistant in the industry at Elmcrest. Many great memories that Steve and I had conversations with. He recalled from 30 years ago that Larry was always more interested in teaching someone else how to play the game than working on his own game. That is who he was. Mr. Tom Dolphin. Tom worked on the Gladson train from 1995 to 2005. Tom rambled for about 20 minutes on how much fun he had with Larry and the staff working at the club, and at the same time sharing great attributes that Larry possesses. However, the story that really resonates with him is how Larry did not know what a metrosexual was. To clarify, Tom cared and spent a lot of time each morning in the mirror really making sure that he looked good and groomed, which is referred to as being a metrosexual. Larry knew nothing of this. Being a metrosexual produced a story on Tom in the Cedar Rapids Gazette. One day when Larry opened up the paper in the morning to see Tom's picture, he was not exactly sure what this meant. Jeff Robertsaw, who's also in the room tonight. Jeff currently works for Larry and has worked for him for 2 years. An interesting story about Jeff is that I think he grew up with Mark, which is Larry's son. In 2016, he was working at a club in Arizona and had just accepted another job. At that exact same time, Larry, I think, needed an assistant and made a phone call to Jeff. Basically asking, are your plans in stone? Just to tell you what his name means, he broke his plans because it's Larry Gladson, and I'm going to work for Larry. It's pretty strong right there. Edith DeCock, now Edith Wessels. Worked for Larry in the summers of 97 and 98, and went on to work at great places like Tamarisk, Camelback, Thunderbird, and now the head golf professional at Silverleaf in Scottsdale. She stated so many great stories and things about Larry. It was probably a 45-minute conversation. One that stood out that happened just a few years ago. She came back to Cedar Rapids. She had an opportunity to, I believe, potentially watch her kids or look at her kids in Cedar Rapids Junior in her club. And it was a Sunday night at Cedar Rapids Country Club. It was clear that Elmcrest must have been one of these gentlemen here. One of the assistants was running the event. It was taken care of. It was a Sunday night, and it was an easy deal. She commented how impressed she was that Larry was there, making sure that each one of the juniors felt special, and that it was his club. He wanted to be there. Chris Miller. Chris, like Bryan Johnson worked 2 different stints with Larry. He worked in 91 to 94, and then again 98 to 2000. He has worked at places like Indian Ridge, Bel Air Country Club in LA, and now at Elmcrest Country Club in California. He remembers so many things, but the one that stands out first is his first golf lesson that he ever had with Larry. Dave, he fixed my grip and he told me to walk around with a ruler in my hands for 2 weeks. It sounds crazy, but if that did not happen, my game would not have improved, and I can promise you I would not be in the golf business today. That is the impact Larry has on individuals. Mr. Brian Bierman. Brian's in the room tonight. Brian currently is the head golf professional at Elmcrest Country Club and has worked with Larry since 2011. My first question to ask Brian is, Brian, why do you think Larry should be in the Iowa Golf Hall of Fame? Brian's answer, because he's old. Brian, anything else? All people that have endured what Larry has endured for the past 30 years should get into the hall. 3 words that Brian used to describe Larry was loyal, intense, and hardworking. Then there was the backroom trio in the late 80s of Nick DeCock, Greg DeCock, and Jim Wessels. Nick DeCock, after leaving Larry in 1998, did some stints at PGA West, Interlochen, Tamarack, Innisbrook, Brookline, Rancho La Quinta, and now at Thunderbird. He talked about Larry time and time again in being professional and being fun to be around. But his fond memories of Larry coming into the bag room saying, guys, I want this bag room to be spotless. That includes every single iron groove, including all of the sitting rests hanging on the bag room wall. I'm not positive, but I think Brian Wilson and I threw those all away on a sunny day, on a winter day. I don't think we were supposed to. So Greg DeCock, that's his brother. He called one morning in the late 80s when Larry came up to him, Greg, I know you're scheduled to work in the bag room today, but we have had some cancellations in the men's best ball tournament. I need you to play. I've given you a 15 handicap. If you shoot 1 stroke better than that, you're fired. But have a lot of fun. Now a few words from some of the folks that I think Larry would consider colleagues or very close friends. Start with Max Moreno, past general manager and COO at Elmcrest since 2013. Some of his phrases, consummate golf professional, he stated, committed and dedicated. The dude is a fanatic about golf. Next quote, this guy knows how to navigate this extremely challenging industry. Rick Tegmeyer, currently the director of grounds at Des Moines Golf and Country Club, worked with Larry at Elmcrest from '89 to 2006 as the golf course superintendent. He commented that he and Larry were just so close while they worked together at Elmcrest. He stated that even after 12-hour days, they would still talk, even when they got home, about the club and the members they cared about so much. Now remember, there's no cell phones back in the 80s. He said they talked so many late nights that after a while, Rick's wife Sherry asked him if he was having an affair with her. Back in the early 90s, Rick did think that Larry might be slipping a touch. He recalls a time that Larry and him were about ready to walk into a green and golf committee meeting, and that Rick was really concerned about this soft spike epidemic. Larry told him, don't worry, it's a passing fad. Rick, even Hall of Famers will slip a little bit, won't they? Mr. Kirk Stanton. Kirk was the executive director of the Iowa PGA for 17 years and became extremely close friends with Larry. He stated, Larry is the epitome of a PGA golf professional. He is the best people person you will ever meet. Kirk also said, you know, Dave, Larry's good and all, but the real brains is Julie. They'd always ask me. Julie, I got to tell you, half the people, if not more, all said the same thing. We're here for you, we're not here for you. The next person I had the pleasure to talk to is a man by the name of Mr. Fred Reeder. Fred was Larry's only true boss in the country club golf industry. Fred was the head professional at the Butte Golf and Country Club in the mid-'80s, where he believes Larry worked for him from '83 to '85, which I think is about right. He stated of all the assistants he has ever had in this industry, Larry was by far the best. He told me to make sure not to put that in my speech in case some of his other assistants caught wind of it, but I'm going to have to apologize to him later. He talked about getting named in Golf Digest's top 25 golf shops back in the 80s, and that Larry was the main driver behind this award. And then there's Mr. Tom Mccann. Larry and Tom have known each other since the summer of 1981, when they were cutting grass together at Pheasant Ridge Golf Course. They were on a golf team together, you and I, and were also roommates. If you know Tom by chance, you know the conversation went well over an hour, and I dropped the phone 3 times laughing so hard at the stories he was about to share about Larry. I will spare everyone those stories, but the bar is open afterwards if you want to catch up with Tom. Tom went on to state very positive and nice things about Larry, similar to every single other conversation that I've had. He did clearly state, though, Schneider, you know that none of us would be here tonight if it wasn't for me. I said, Tom, how is that? He said, a little known fact about Larry is that he was destined to be the world's best 4th grade PE teacher right out of college. Right at that point, I was sitting on a bus with some golf camp students, and I got seated next to a guy by the name of Fred Reeder, who was in need of a golf assistant. After I worked my magic with Fred, Larry was then working for him with the rest of his assistant. He said, actually, Dave, I'm the one that should be honored tonight because I put them all together. Then finally, we all know that teaching is Larry's passion. It's who he is. So I thought at least one quote from one of the thousands of students that Larry have taught would be extremely appropriate. I got the Elmcrest directory from one of the guys, and I thought, here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to cold call. And the first person that answers and gives me a quote, I'm going to go with it. So after 10 different phone calls with the members at Elmcrest saying, who are you talking about? Larry who? I just gave up and thought, why not just call Zach Johnson? Not surprisingly, Zach took a phone call and was extremely, extremely honored to talk on this topic of Larry Gladson. Our conversation was extremely unique, though. He had so many things to say that he couldn't formulate the words. I think everyone knows the relationship that they have, but he couldn't put them into sentences. Now, I know he's actually, it was last night, he obviously playing in San Antonio, but he was completely tongue-tied. I thought that was something that actually says a lot about Larry. This is an individual who just has won 2 golf majors and over 20 PGA Tour events, and he couldn't put together a sentence. He said, Dave, just put it into phrases and just kind of go with it. So these are some of his quotes. He has had a massive impact in my foundation assisting kids. We cannot quantify his impact on the Cedar Rapids community. He started me in the game of golf. He would take my calls when I was a student at Drake and struggling with my game. He maybe would provide a short physical tip, or maybe just an encouraging word. I owe so much to Larry Gladson. So Larry, the conversations about you the last few weeks went on and on and on. We laughed and reminisced. Unfortunately, they all took place without you. These stories and thoughts are just a fragment of what we all think of you and what you have done for us. You have impacted us so deeply, and we are forever grateful. Maybe you have not noticed, Larry, but I've not mentioned what I think of you in our 28-year relationship. I guess due to the timing, I will just state that I have had 2 fathers in my life. One passed away 2 years ago, and the other one is sitting right in front of me. That should sum it up. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our last inductee of the night into the Iowa Golf Hall of Fame, Mr. Larry Gladson.
What I just said to Dave was, how do you expect me to talk after what you just did? So, Dave, thank you very much for the introduction and all the kind words and all the research on all the guys and gals that work for us at the club. It's really pretty amazing. Give me a minute. I'd like to thank the Iowa Golf Hall of Fame Selection Committee, the Iowa Golf Association, the Iowa PGA, Women's Golf Association, and the superintendents for this honor. I truly am honored. Rick, friend of Iowa Golf Hall of Famer, thank you for emceeing this evening. I'd like to congratulate Ivan on a wonderful career. You probably don't remember Ivan, but we played golf together in some amateur events probably 35 years ago, a long, long time ago. I remember whenever we saw you and Gary paired up together that you were absolutely the team to beat. So congratulations on your fine career. Charlie Burkhart, you know, they talked about Charlie a little bit. Charlie was the first ever pro at Elmcrest. He was there for 42 years. And his record speaks for itself. But the members back at Elmcrest that remember Charlie have nothing but kind things to say about him and all the wonderful things he did for them. He was just a great ambassador to the game. And also, congratulations to the families of Tom and Bill on their wonderful records. My journey into the golf business, Dave kind of talked a little bit about it. It was really not a plan. It was fate. I went to high school in Dubuque, played high school golf for Terry Harris. Where's Terry? Terry, thank you for coming, Terry. Then I went to UNI, played college golf at UNI for Ken Green. Had some success, but becoming a PGA Golf Professional was really not part of the plan. I worked on the grounds crew at Pheasant Ridge in Cedar Falls for Iowa Golf Hall of Famer Steve Tyler. Tom Mccann was on that group, as were a lot of my college teammates. And my oh my, did we have some fun. We could tell stories forever about that. I really don't think those stories are appropriate for this evening, so maybe some other time. But we had so much fun. We worked so hard during the day to make sure that golf course was absolutely pristine. Because the moment we were off work, we were headed to the first tee, we were going to play golf until dark. I seriously thought about becoming a golf course superintendent. Steve Tyler meant a lot to me, and I learned a lot from him. I loved working outside. Tegmeyer built me a putting green in my backyard, and that putting green, all I do is mow it and grow it. I never putt on it. So, but anyway, I love that stuff. But anyway, I so appreciate the job that all the superintendents do. Two of my favorite superintendents are here tonight. Nick Cray, my son-in-law, from Oakwood in Kansas City, and Rick Tegmeyer. Give me 1 second again. Sorry, I'm so emotional. Rick and I worked side by side for 17 years at Elmcrest. Rick just recently was awarded the National Golf Course Superintendent of the Year. Wow. My plan was to teach school, as Tom said. Teach school, coach sports. After graduation, I was going to get married, going to move to Dubuque. My wife, Julie, she already had a job. I didn't. So Tom Mccann and I, we both volunteered to work at the Iowa PGA Junior Golf Academy. All the junior golfers from the state of Iowa, they come into Cedar Falls for a week, and all the PGA Club pros taught them. Tom's and my job was not to be teaching the kids golf. Our job was to make sure that we did not lose them in the dormitories at night. And we did pretty good. But that's where fate took me to Fred Reeder, Tom helped. Fred was the golf professional at Dubuque Golf Country Club. And Fred asked me to come work for him as his assistant. And I thought it sounded like a good short-term gig. Well, I keep looking for a teaching and coaching job. I really had no idea what I was walking into. I figured, you know, you'd probably go in about 9, give a couple lessons, probably play 18 holes with the members in the afternoon and home for dinner. But I found out real fast that's not what it was at all. Fred was tough. He was demanding. But his passion for the game was infectious. And I loved it. Fred Reeder is my mentor. God, I'm emotional. Yeah, he is my mentor. I wouldn't be here tonight without him. He was a great promoter of junior golf, great teacher. One of his proudest moments was in 1986 when Elmcrest named me their head pro. The first time I played Elmcrest was in 1985. I was still up in Dubuque. Played the section championship there, and I absolutely fell in love with the golf course and the club. And a year later, the job came open, and I applied for it, and I was successful. And I still remember the selection committee. They asked me, they said, if you were successful and got this job, how long would you see yourself staying at Elmcrest? And I said, 5 to 7 years. That was the national average back then. And I also told them, I've known Charlie Burkhardt for 42 years, and that's a true story. Well, here I am, 33 seasons later, and I know why Charlie was there all those years. Elmcrest is my dream job. I love it there. I love the relationships that I've made with the members, and I so appreciate all the members that can make it here this evening. Dave kind of touched on the assistants a little bit that would have been there. That was touching. You blew me away. I really appreciate you doing that. They all mean the world to me. You know, they got their PGA memberships. A lot of them went out to become head pros. There was one story Dave didn't tell. And that was, I had this young man who worked for me in the golf shop, and he worked there for a couple of years. And his name was Mike Dawson. Mike, real quick, I had to hire him. He was a high school kid when he first started. He kept coming in and asking for a job at Total Tiles. And he did it 3 different times. Finally, I said, you know, I got to hire this kid just to get him off my back. And anyway, he turned out to be such a wonderful employee. And he was with me for years, but he recommended one of his buddies from college. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure it out. This kid from college, he went to school at UNI, he lived in Bettendorf, wanted to work in the bag room at Elmcrest for minimum wage. It made no sense to me. Well, this minimum wage employee later became an assistant pro at Elmcrest, later became head pros in Illinois, Arizona, Hawaii, back in Iowa, and he's now the general manager at Happy Hollow in Omaha, and he's also the District 8 Director of the National PGA of America. That's Dave Schneider. Dave's resume is impressive, but in my opinion, it's only getting started. I really see this guy, and he knows how I feel. I see him going a long, long way in the whole industry of golf. He is truly a leader. He said something about people skills, somebody before. The #1 guy that I know when it comes to people skills is Dave Schneider. He's absolutely fine. Thank you, Dave. All the assistant pros that worked at Elmcrest, they were all overworked. They're underpaid, but they absolutely love the business and everything that came with it. And I so appreciate each and every one of them. Thank you. Elmcrest is a family sports club. Junior golf is so important to our membership. They take great pride in the accomplishment of the kids, not only as players, but as also as citizens. And for me, it gives me great joy to watch these kids develop a passion in golf, whether it's just recreationally, whether it's to lead their high school teams, whether it's to play in college or beyond. When I first started at Elmcrest, there was a family that joined about the same time. And little did I know the impact that they were going to have on golf at Elmcrest and golf across the state. Zach was 10 years old when the Johnsons joined. He was a normal kid. He loved all sports, played them all. You all know his story. Great high school player, played on the state championship team. He was a good college player, played at Drake, qualified at NCAA regionals twice. But Zach wanted a lot more than that. He wanted more than that, and he chased his dreams. Now, you know the rest of it. He's a two-time major champion, 12-time winner on the PGA Tour. But the kids of Iowa also know his story. They know that a kid from Iowa, a normal kid from Iowa, went out and played golf, chased his dreams, pursued his dreams, and he made it on the PGA Tour. And they all dream to do the same thing. Zach has had a huge impact on golf in Iowa. But his impact isn't felt just in golf. It's also felt in the Zach Johnson Foundation, his charity work, which benefits children. Many lives have been positively impacted because of Zach and the Zach Johnson Foundation. For a club pro, it doesn't get any better than that. Watch one of your junior golfers reach the mountaintop. And it was never more obvious to me than in 2007 that he had. My son went to school not too far away from Augusta, and he was within driving distance, and he was going down to the Masters the first couple of days, and he was dogging me to get down there, but I knew I couldn't go. I knew on Saturday that my daughter was going to get engaged. My now son-in-law had asked for permission to marry my daughter, and I knew that was the day he was going to propose. So it's family first, stayed home. And we celebrated. We had just a wonderful day with Nick and Kimberly that day. And it was 6 o'clock sharp when they left the house. And they went over to Nick's parents to celebrate over there. And they were no more out the front door. And my wife Julie said, "All right, you've done your job. Let's find a way to get you to Augusta." So we got on the internet on a 5 a.m. flight on Easter Sunday out of the Quad Cities. And we booked it. First thing I did is I called Zach's dad, Dave. I knew that Dave was down in Augusta, but I knew that Zach's mom was not. And I said, "Dave, I'm on my way. Do you think Julie'd like to come along with?" He said, "I don't think so, but let me call her. I'll call you right back." And sure enough, she decided she was going to stay home and celebrate Easter Sunday with the rest of the Johnson family that was in Cedar Rapids. But he said, "Larry, I've got 2 more tickets." He said, "One of Zach's teammates had missed the cut, and his parents gave you 2 more tickets. If you gotta know anybody else who wants to go, give me a call, or just bring them down." So first thing I did is I called Ron Hammerberg. By the way, Ron and I are not related. I know a lot of people went up to him and said congratulations to me, but anyway, if you want to talk insurance, talk to Ron. We'll talk offense. But anyway, Ron, I said, "I've got a ticket for you, and there's a 5 a.m. flight leaving out of the Quad Cities tomorrow. You want to go?" He says, "Yeah, I'm in." And I said, "I got 1 more ticket. Do you know anybody else who wants to go?" And he goes, "Well, I'm out to dinner with Brad Canfield and David Coffey," let me ask him. So he asked Brad, and Brad says, "Yeah." And then David goes, "Well, I want to go." So now we're 1 ticket short, but we all booked the flights, took off, figured we'd find a way to get another ticket when we got down there. So we were on our commute from Atlanta to Augusta, and we get the phone number of a scalper. And we said, "Hey, do you have a ticket for Sunday?" And he said, "We do, $800. And we bought it. We put it on Brad's charge card. And, we figured we'd just split it 4 ways, $200 a man, nobody gets hurt. So we're off to a great start. Here we go. It was about the time we put the phone down, my son, Mark, called. And he said, "Dad, I'm on my way. I'm going to meet you there. I'll meet you at the front gate." But my roommate, Matt, who's married Saturday, he decided not to go, so I'm coming alone. I said, "Mark, do you have Matt's ticket?" And he goes, "I do." I said, "Don't lose it. Brad, get a hold of that scalper. Let's get rid of that thing." And sure enough, we did. It was unbelievable. I thought for sure he was going to get a charge on his card, but he didn't. So we were all in the gates. We were in the gates a couple hours before Zach teed off. We took off, went down the front 9, and Zach was looking good. Made a couple birdies. We all remember standing on the 10th tee, and we said, "The Masters doesn't start until the back 9 on Sunday." Here we go. And we took off, went down the back 9. Zach made a couple more birdies. He was looking very comfortable. He was looking so calm. As a matter of fact, we all were, until the 16th hole. Zach birdied the 16th hole, and this guy was no longer calm. I knew that the Masters was all his. All he had to do was finish the deal. And of course he did. We spent the better part of the next 4 hours inside the Butler cabin. And I remember looking at Zach, thinking, here's this Elmcrest kid with a green jacket on, a Masters champion, inside the Butler cabin, the tournament that I love watching the most. And I still remember what I felt. And I cannot put those feelings into words. It gives me goosebumps telling you. It was just an amazing deal. I went up to Zach and I told him, I said, you know, you looked incredibly calm out there. And he told me he was. That too blew me away. I mean, here's this Masters, we all watch it, we love it. Sometimes we get nervous for the players watching them on TV. And Zach was the calmest guy in the whole place. Just an amazing deal. The day wasn't over. They had a Masters celebration with all the members of Augusta National up in the clubhouse, and for Zach and his family. And they had all gone up there, and the rest of us stayed back in the Butler cabin. We were having a good time too. But Mark and I stepped out for just a minute, and a member yelled down at us. He goes, "Are you guys with Zach?" And we said, "Yeah, we are." He said, "Well, come on up here, get the clubhouse." And we said, "Oh, we can't. We got mud on our shoes, we got mud on our slacks, we got hat here going on, we don't belong up there." And he insisted. So Mark and I went up, and they had the most wonderful celebration. All the Augusta members got their green blazers on, the ladies looked beautiful, Zach and his family looked so happy, and one of the members came up and he said, "Would you guys like a tour of the clubhouse?" He's getting better. So he said, "Sure, we'll do that." And Mark and I went, and Gabe, Zach's brother went, and Zach's dad, Dave, went. We went into the crow's nest, where all the amateurs stayed, and all the history there. We went into all the different rooms at Augusta National, and with all their history, I still remember the desk in front of the window looking over the top of the first tee. And that was the desk where President Eisenhower did a lot of his presidency from, right at Augusta National. Just truly amazing. It was an amazing 24 hours. By the way, the guy who gave us that tour is now, his name is Fred Ridley. He's now the chairman of Augusta National. This was his first year. So, pretty cool. It was amazing 24 hours. You know, Zach is, he's opened up a lot of doors for me, for a lot of people with all of his achievements and accomplishments. But I never really envisioned him ever opening up the doors to Augusta or the Butler cabin. It was amazing. I've cherished my relationship with Zach, as I do all of the junior golfers that I have an opportunity to teach and coach. This next part is going to be rough. It's going to be good. My family's all here. My mom, my brother Steve, and his wife Deb, my wife Julie, my kids, Kimberly, I knew I could read you. Kimberly and Mark and their spouses, Nick and Carolyn. I so appreciate your love, support, the encouragement for me to chase my dreams of golf. Especially Julie. She is my rock. She is my number one. You're the best. My drive in the game, my drive is my passion for the game, my love of the game. I love to play it. I love to teach it. I love to teach life lessons and learn life lessons through the game. I love to promote our club and promote our membership through the game. I feel so blessed to do what I do for a living and for the people I do it for. Thank you all very much. I'm very honored and I'm humbled.